Have you ever lain in bed at night, eyes closed, but your mind still wide awake? The day has ended. Your body is tired, yet inside, thoughts continue playing like an endless soundtrack. Tomorrow's to-do list. Something you wish you hadn't said. A vague worry you can't name. Your mind becomes a busy highway cars rushing past, horns blaring, no rest, no pause. We live in a world like this. Even when you don't want to think, the mind keeps thinking. And the subtle truth is, we've become so used to it that we no longer realize we're being carried away. Have you ever stopped to wonder, if I truly stop thinking, what remains? Would you become empty? Or would you finally touch something deeper than thought, a stillness from which everything arises? Modern science calls this the default mode network, a system in the brain that replays the past and projects the future, chattering endlessly. But more than 2,000 years ago, the Buddha simply called it the untrained mind that does not know how to rest, how to come home to the present moment. And yet, the Buddha didn't teach us to destroy thought. He showed a way to stop being ruled by it. That path begins with one very simple and very deep question. Where is your mind right now? In the video, What Happens When You Stop Thinking? From the TT-Buddhism channel, we gently explore that question, not to reach a final answer, but to see ourselves more clearly. You may not fully stop thinking, but you may begin to see your thoughts clearly, and that is the first taste of freedom. We invite you to stay until the end of the video, and if something touches your heart, a moment of silence, a deep breath, a little clarity, please feel free to leave a comment below. Who knows? Your words might become a small flower that helps someone else pause, smile, and take a mindful breath right here, in the midst of all this thinking. Part 1. The mind as a busy street. There's something that happens every morning, though few people ever notice it. The moment you open your eyes, your mind begins to speak. No one asks it to, no one turns it on, but it begins anyway. It speaks of yesterday, what you didn't do quite right. It speaks of today, the things you need to finish. And it whispers of tomorrow, with endless stories that haven't yet happened. It's a stream of inner dialogue that never stops flowing. You didn't invite it, yet it arrives. You're not trying to think, yet thoughts still arise like ripples appearing on a still lake. At that moment, the mind is like an old radio. You don't turn it on, but it plays endlessly. It plays songs from the past, things left unresolved, dreams unfulfilled, and quiet worries about the future. In modern science, this is called the default mode networker, part of the brain that generates thought loops when the mind has nothing specific to focus on. But in the language of the Dharma, this is simply an untrained mind stream without a captain. An untrained mind is like a wild horse. It has great energy, but if you don't know how to guide it, it can carry you to places you never meant to go. No one is born knowing how to master their thoughts, but anyone can begin to pause and recognize what's happening within, not to control the mind, but to understand it and to care for it. There is an old teaching told through a simple image. 2 arrows. The first arrow is life itself, a loss, a heartbreak, a harsh word that stings. Everyone is struck by this arrow. No one escapes. But then, instead of tending to the wound, we often reach for a second arrow and drive it in ourselves. That's when we think, why me? This shouldn't have happened. I'll never be okay again. Wasser, 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 leitzer, wasser, Eifer, lighter, 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 lighter. The second arrow is made of thought, judgment, regret, resentment, and often the second arrow hurts far more than the first. You may not be able to avoid the first arrow, but you can learn not to shoot the second. When the mind is swept up in non-stop thinking, regretting the past, fearing the future even, the beauty of the present becomes invisible. That's why, even while sitting in the soft glow of a sunset, you might feel anxious. Even when birds are singing and the breeze is gentle, you may only hear the voice inside saying, "What did I do wrong today?" Or, "Why don't they understand me?" The mind becomes like a noisy cafe where everyone is speaking and no one is truly listening. In that clamor, even the sweetest bird's song cannot be heard. You don't need to turn off all the sounds outside you, only need to lower the noise within, because only then can you hear what truly matters, the quiet call to come home to yourself. Sometimes, your body is right here sitting beside a loved one, walking through a forest, sharing a simple meal, but your mind is far away. It's lost in a story from yesterday, or imagining a future that hasn't arrived. And just like that, you are not truly living your life. The mind is like a busy street, cars rushing by without pause, without traffic lights, without direction. Each car is a thought. What should I do? What do they think of me? Am I good enough? Did I make a mistake? Did I make a mistake? In that chaos, it becomes impossible to hear your own heart. You stop seeing the person sitting across from you. You stop noticing the sky. You no longer feel the breeze. But here is something gentle to remember. The mind can be trained. You may not be able to stop the traffic outside, but you can sit by the sidewalk and simply watch the cars go by. You don't have to jump into the middle of the street. You only need to see clearly that you are not the cars. When the mind begins to quiet, you'll discover you don't need to think so much to be alive. Just one deep in-breath is enough to return home. Just one soft out-breath is enough to lay down the weight you've been carrying. The mind isn't a place for chaos to roam freely. The mind is a place where you can return and rest. And to do that, you don't have to go anywhere far. You only need to stop for a moment and look deeply into what's happening right now. Part 2. Stillness is not emptiness. There is a kind of tiredness that no one can see. It doesn't live in your legs or in your back. It doesn't come from hard work. It lives in the mind. It feels like you've been carrying something all day, a heavy backpack, but you never stopped long enough to realize it was there. And then, one quiet moment in the day, you sit down. You don't do anything. You're not trying to stop thinking. You're not trying to meditate well or understand deeply. You simply stop following. In that very moment, the first thing you feel is not wisdom, not enlightenment, but something beautifully simple. Relief. Like a traveler who's been walking a long road and finally rests under the shade of a tree, taking one deep breath and realizing, "Oh, I've been so tired." Your body softens, your shoulders relax, your breath becomes slower, and your mind, like a bird that has flown far, begins to return home. In that silence, you don't need to figure anything out. You just need to be here. Then something magical happens. The world begins to reveal itself. no longer through the foggy glass of thought, no longer through the lens of judgment, no more good or bad, right or wrong, worthy or unworthy. You simply see the color of the sky, and it feels like the first time. You hear the song of a bird, and it lands in your heart like music. Without words, you feel the breeze brushing your skin, and nothing needs to be added or taken away. You look into the eyes of someone you love, not to evaluate or predict, but simply to see. This is the kind of seeing that carries no label. It is the kind of knowing that comes with no concepts. In Zen, it's called beginner's mind, a mind that meets each moment as if it were brand new, a mind not shaped by history, not bent by memory, not shadowed by expectation, a mind that simply arrives. Can you remember the first time a child touched snow? They didn't think. Snow is frozen water, created when temperatures fall below zero due to certain weather patterns. They just felt it. The cold, the softness, the melting in their hand. They didn't know snow. They became one with it. And when your mind becomes still in this way, you don't disappear. You don't lose yourself. You simply come home to yourself. Because when the noise of thoughts stops standing between you and the world, between you and those you love, between you and your own heart, then even the self you've been protecting starts to soften. That inner voice that says, I need to be seen, I can't forgive, I must prove something, I've been hurt. Those voices are not wrong. They are signs of a heart waiting to be heard. But when you see them clearly, as passing waves, you no longer feel the need to defend or obey them. You no longer live inside a fragile me. You begin to open to others, open to the soft places within yourself, not as someone separate, but as someone deeply connected. You don't vanish, you dissolve, like a drop of water merging with the ocean, not lost, madevast, and love begins to bloom from this spaciousness. Not, I love this person, but not that one, not, who deserves my compassion, just a quiet, natural response, a resonance with life itself. You see someone in pain, and you don't think, I should care. You just care. Not because of morality, not because of duty, but because your heart now has the space to let love arise, like a lotus blooming when the pond is still. Because love doesn't bloom in a storm, it blossoms in stillness. And then you begin to understand. Stillness is not emptiness. Stillness is where life begins to speak in its true voice. Part 3. You don't have to stop thinking. Just stop being carried away. Many people, when they begin to practice mindfulness, carry a misunderstanding. That thought is the enemy, a distraction, an obstacle, something to eliminate at all costs. But if you've ever sat quietly for long enough, you'll realize something quietly beautiful. Thought is not the problem. It's simply part of the mind, just like the breath, like sensations, like the sound of the wind in the trees. Thought is like a knife. It can slice fruit and prepare a nourishing meal for someone you love. But in careless hands, the same knife can cause harm. The problem is not the tool. The problem is how it's being used. The mind is no different. Thoughts don't need to be silenced. They just need to be seen clearly and guided with awareness. Ask yourself, gently and honestly, who is driving this thought? Is it guided by compassion and understanding, or by habit, fear, and reaction? When you begin to see this, you don't need to force the mind to stop thinking. You simply stop being pulled away by it. Some people think too much, so much that they lose touch with what's actually here. Others try to suppress thought altogether, straining to hold back the mind, only to feel frustrated and tense. But neither extreme leads to peace. In the Buddha's teaching, there is a beautiful concept, the middle way path, between all extremes, between indulgence and repression, between grasping and resisting. A wise person does not try to destroy thought, but neither do they become lost in it. They simply see it clearly. And because they see it, they are free. The Buddha called this right thought-own element of the Noble Eightfold Path. Right thought doesn't just mean thinking correctly. It means thought that arises from a heart not clouded by greed, hatred, or delusion. It is thought born from kindness, understanding, and letting go. You don't need to think less. You only need to think with compassion and mindfulness, like a gardener who doesn't rip out every plant, but knows which ones to water and which ones to gently remove. And this is only possible when you learn to observe without clinging. In meditation, we don't try to control the mind. We simply sit in full presence. We see thoughts arise, stay for a while, and pass away, like clouds floating across the sky. You are not the clouds. You are the vast, open sky in which they appear. Clouds can be thick, they can be dark, but they never stay forever. The sky is always there, spacious, still, and accepting. Thoughts come, thoughts go, and you are still here, unmoved, unshaken, untouched. You don't need to interfere. You simply witness. And in that witnessing, you become free. Freedom doesn't mean having no thoughts. It means not being ruled by them. You can still plan, solve, speak, act, but all from within a space of stillness. Not because you've conquered the mind, but because you're no longer its servant. It's like a musician playing a piece of music. They don't play every note. They listen, they pause, they let silence speak between the sounds. In the same way, wisdom is not thinking endlessly, nor avoiding thought, but knowing when it's time to think, and when it's enough to simply breathe. Part 4. If thinking stops completely, what remains? Have you ever wondered, if your mind became completely still, no inner voice, no planning, no commentary, what would remain? It may sound unusual, but such a state truly exists. In deep meditation, there are moments when the activity of the mind falls completely silent. There's no sense of time passing, no judgment, no label, and perhaps most surprising of all, no feeling of I watching it happen. It's not sleep, and it's not unconsciousness. In fact, it's a form of awareness that is deeply alive, even though it's not built on thinking. You don't disappear. What disappears is the idea of you that's been running in the background, the identity always trying to prove, compare, control. That narrative falls away, and what's left is pure presence. This might sound abstract, but it's very real. It's what happens when there is nothing left to defend, nothing left to fix, nothing that needs to be figured out. Just you breathing, you being, you resting in the simplicity of this moment. When the self is no longer in the center, you begin to taste a kind of freedom that doesn't come from achieving anything, just from not clinging to anything. And what's beautiful is, you can come back from that space and still live a full life. You can go to work, have conversations, solve problems, but something has shifted. You're no longer attached to your thoughts the way you used to be. You're no longer trapped in a loop of reacting, regretting, or rehearsing. In the past, when someone said something hurtful, maybe you replayed it in your head for days. You analyzed, reacted, and felt weighed down by it. Now, you still feel it, but you don't carry it as long. You see it arise. You pose, and maybe, just maybe, you let it go. This is the difference. You still think, but you no longer get pulled around by every thought that passes through your mind. This is what it means to live with mindfulness. Not to stop thinking, but to see clearly when you're being pulled and to gently step back. You begin to use thought as a tool, not as your master. You think when it's needed, and you also know when to stop, rest, or simply breathe. It's like a skilled craftsman. They don't hammer everything. They choose the right tool, at the right time, with the right touch. Your mind becomes like that, not forced into silence, but quietly wise, gently alert, naturally kind. And here's the most comforting truth. You don't have to stay in deep meditation forever to benefit from this. Even a few moments of stillness can change how you respond to life. You begin to see clearly what thoughts are helpful and which are just noise. You learn how to return to the present moment, not because you've solved your mind, but because you're no longer afraid of what it contains. So when thinking truly stops, what remains is not emptiness. What remains is space. A soft, open space where you can breathe again, where you can put down your inner burdens, where you no longer fight yourself. From that space, you can return to the world with more balance, more clarity, more warmth. Life will still bring challenges. You will still feel tired some days. The mind will still chatter from time to time, but deep within you, you'll know there's always a place you can return to. A place that doesn't move, doesn't rush, doesn't demand. It simply waits for you beneath all the noise. And perhaps that's the real secret. You don't need to stop every thought forever. You just need to stop being ruled by them. And when you do, you're not losing yourself. You're finding something far more real. We've walked quite a journey together, one that began with a simple yet powerful question. What happens when you stop thinking? Maybe you expected a clear answer, a method, or a mystical state. But as you've now seen, in the light of mindfulness and meditation, the answer doesn't come from concepts. It comes from quietly seeing your own mind just as it is. We've explored many dimensions of that seeing. That thought is not the enemy, it's just part of the mind's natural activity. That the problem is not thinking too much, but not realizing when we're being pulled away by thought. And most of all, that stillness doesn't mean thought disappears. It means you are no longer lost in it. You see thought arise. You see it pass. And in that clear space in between you return. You return to your breath. You return to your body. You return to the present moment. And in that return, life becomes real again. You don't need to force your thoughts to stop. You just need to stop being carried away by them. You just need to recognize, oh, this is a thought. It's not who I am. Aid, night, aid, end. And as soon as you see that, the thought loses its grip. You become the sky, not the clouds. Spacious, steady, free. When the sky is no longer covered with clouds, the sun naturally shines. When the mind is no longer entangled, insight naturally appears. We also touched a deeper state, a moment when the thinking mind goes completely still, not asleep, not unconscious, but completely present, without needing any commentary. What remains then isn't emptiness, It's space. A soft, open space where you don't need to fix anything, defend anything, or figure anything out. A space where you can breathe again. And when you return from that stillness into your everyday life, you don't come back as someone different. You come back with more balance. You return with the ability to think clearly without being trapped by thinking, to speak without needing to dominate, to act without being pushed by fear or pride. Maybe now you can see the true transformation is not about eliminating thought. It's about changing your relationship with it. You think when needed. You rest when you can. And in between, you learn how to live from a place of stillness, not as a distant retreat, but as a source of quiet strength within daily life. You're not trying to escape your mind. You're just learning how to live in it more peacefully. Like a skilled craftsman, you choose the right tools at the right time, not out of reactivity, but out of clarity and kindness. This kind of mindfulness isn't limited to the meditation cushion. You can practice it while walking to work, washing dishes, listening to a friend. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present again and again. And if you've stayed with us until now, then I know you're not rushing. You're not looking for quick techniques. You're looking for a way to come home to yourself, not through control, but through gentle understanding. If something in this video has touched you, please leave a comment below, even just a short reflection or feeling. Your words may be just what someone else needs to hear. Your presence might help someone pause, breathe, and soften into their own experience. If you found this video helpful, you can also like, share, or subscribe to the TT-Buddhism channel, where we share more quiet, deep reflections like this one, based on the Buddha's teachings, told in the voice of everyday life. Thank you for being here, not just to hear these words, but to truly listen to yourself, to the quiet inside you that has always been there, waiting. The question, what happens when you stop thinking, doesn't need a final answer, because every moment you pause, breathe, and come back, you're answering it in your own way. You don't need to become someone new. You don't need to go anywhere far. You're already home. And when your thoughts pull you away again, as they will, just remember, you can always return. With one breath, you are already back.